Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with an awesome new video and an unboxing of my latest acquisition, the Peter Rassenti Nirvana 3.0. If you've been following my channel, you'll know that I'm a big fan of Peter's work. My very first video that I ever made on YouTube was the Spyderco Nirvana review. And ever since then, I have been chasing Peter's work as hard as I possibly can. I have owned multiple pieces from him and have made many videos on many different knives of his. I will leave some links down below so you can check all of those out. I just came back from the Blade Show 2019 where I acquired this, the Nirvana 3.0, directly from Peter, and I'm really thrilled to be able to talk about this knife with you guys. The 3.0 brings some significant revisions from the previous 2.0 model, and we'll be going over all that here in the video. What you can see here on the table is the very last Nirvana 2.0 ever made. I'm very lucky to have this in my personal collection, and it will provide a very excellent backdrop for this video. You're also going to notice the Spyderco Paysan, currently available in production form. The Paysan represents a relative bargain as compared to some of these custom versions. This is about 1/3 or less of the price of one of these full customs. If that puts that in any perspective about how you judge the Spyderco version of these custom knives. But the very most interesting things about Peter Rassenti's knives and his designs are the fact that he does them all with integral handles. An integral handle is a titanium or steel or whatever piece that comprises both the locking mechanism and the handle itself. You'll notice that all three of these knives have one solid piece of titanium as a handle. There are no handle screws, there are no standoffs, which is very much different from traditional knife construction where you have screws and pins and standoffs and a sandwich type construction. That's what makes his knives universally awesome, and it's something that I've been chasing in a lot of other knives ever since I discovered this was even a thing that you can do. The Nirvana is probably his most well-known model. It's the model that came out from Spyderco first. It's the one that I was introduced to first, and so to get the latest generation of the Nirvana, of the custom Nirvana, is really an honor and a privilege, and I'm excited to go through the details with you. I'll move the Paysan off the screen here, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight the major differences between the 2.0 right here and the 3.0 right here. Peter did not really like some of the things on the 2.0 after making quite a number of them. Firstly, he felt that the design was a bit of a boomerang type shape where it felt like it was kind of broken and rotated in this way. And so he brought the entire design, made it a little bit more straight. Then he made the blade slightly smaller. We're looking at 3.6 inches of blade as opposed to about 3.75 inches of blade. And right here you're looking at about 4.2 inches in the handle, of 4.6 inches. Let me take a measurement right here. We're looking at 4.6 inches on the handle here, whereas the handle on the full-size one was more like 4.75, 4.8. The long story short is he took more off the handle than he did off of the blade and got an even better blade to handle ratio on the Nirvana 3.0. You're also going to notice the blade is marginally taller. What that allows for is for the hollow grind to be slightly taller. The swedge is reduced. That also allows the grind to be slightly taller. The spidey hole size is increased. It's moved backwards and upwards in relation to this one. This allows for a larger hole and easier access from the handle. You're also going to notice that there's a more efficient use of space in this area right here. These angles have all been tightened up and moved forward. This has been broadened and this angle has been reduced. And so you have a more efficient use of space around the pivot area. Continuing back into the handle, you're going to notice that there is a less aggressive curvature of the handle contours down here. Notice that these relatively lock your fingers into a more fixed position than here. Particularly here, it's much more sweeping and much less sort of locking your hand into that position. Some other minor changes on this particular model, I've had him do the contouring where the with what we call the Coke bottle frame as opposed to this one that's rather square. Some of the 3.0s come with different configurations, and you'll just have to see what you can find with those. If you order from him, this one is called the Coke bottle frame. He has some other ones with some perforations and some milling patterns and other ones that are really cool too. So now that I've shown you the major differences between the 2.0 and the 3.0, I'm going to go ahead and just get the raw vital signs on this knife alone. We've already talked about the blade, 3.6 inches, 4.6 on the handle. You're looking at right at about, let's see, 8.2 inches of overall length right there, which makes perfect sense. This milled version right here is a really, really nice variant because it really reduces the weight and it makes it 3.87 ounces. So to get 3.6 inches and 3.8 or 3.9 ounces, that's a really nice ratio given the amount of metal that's on this piece right here. Some of my favorite measurements on this knife are the widths. Namely that the blade stock is a little bit on the thicker side at 152 thousandths right there, but at the thickest part of the handle, you're coming in at 0.424 inches. So at the very most widest point of the handle, it's 0.42 inches, and that's right here, and the rest of it is even thinner than that. And so just understand how thin this integral profile is with this contouring. And then he's been able to sandwich in a relatively thick blade with an aggressive hollow grind, and so it just feels very robust and very capable, while at the same time very slim and very carryable. So let's go ahead and bring out another couple of knives for a size comparison. Right here we have the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 and the Para 3. I really enjoy this size comparison because you can see it's got the handle size of a Para 3 and even more cutting length than a Para 2. So I really like the way that this is balanced. The overall size profile certainly favors the Para 2, but you get a nicer efficiency of space on this one. I really love the way he's maximized blade to handle ratio here. Speaking of the blade, let's break this knife down anatomically and take a look at this absolutely beautiful mirror stonewashed CPM 154 drop point hollow ground blade right here. I absolutely adore the Nirvana blade, and he's kept it relatively similar to the previous versions. It's immediately recognizable as a Nirvana blade despite being slightly shorter. I think that he's made some significant improvements with the taller grind right here and the shortening of the swedge. It's just a very good looking design. I really appreciate that he's lessened the wasted space right here. It really just makes for a much cleaner design. It's a very nice drop point design with a nice tip. Thinly ground. You can see here at the heel of the blade exactly how thin it is behind the edge. Very nicely done right there. Peter grinds these by hand, and he does an amazing job with that. The Spidey hole is a little bit easier to access. You'll notice that when the knife is closed, that it is large and immediately available within that space right there. And you'll notice on the older version that the hole did not extend into the handle. This really allows for a very, very comfortable entry, whereas before it was somewhat limited in how you could access it. I'll never say that this was difficult in any way, but somehow it's much easier now that the hole is so much larger. There is some functional yet not uncomfortable jimping up on the top. A nice amount of traction is provided here for both the thumb and the finger in this position, the index finger. Taking a look at one of my favorite parts about this blade is the finish. My camera will never be able to capture this beautiful mirror stonewash finish. I like to call it mirror wash for short. I know that my friend J.D. Van Deventer called it the murder wash because it really requires a lot of effort to mirror polish this whole blade perfectly and then dump it into a stone washer with the right kind of medium that's going to cause a very fine stone wash rather than a more aggressive one. Sometimes people have done these and it looks a little bit messy. This is a very, very fine stone wash and it looks absolutely stunning. I really like it. It does attract a lot of fingerprints, and so it's important to have a cloth nearby if you're OCD. But what it does do is provide a very slick blade, but one that will hide wear if and when you decide to use it. I really enjoy that. I do EDC my knives. I do carry and use all of them, and so I like to have finishes like that. Moving back to the pivot, this is running on ball bearings. The thing that I love about integral knives is that there is only the pivot screw to worry about. This one comes in T15 Torx, and I absolutely love it. In typical Peter Rassenti fashion, it's unbelievably smooth, rockets out of the handle, and drops shut under its own weight. One of the things that I enjoy about these contoured handles is that there's a little bit less titanium in the lock bar, and it just feels like there's a slight bit less pressure that you have to place in disengaging the lock, and it's just a very smooth and enjoyable experience. The detent is in true Peter fashion on the medium to lighter side. This is a controversy that's come up actually recently with the Paysan. A lot of folks have been talking about how weak the detent is on the Paysan. Now I'm shaking this, I'm not holding the lock bar, and it's not coming out, but if I give it a proper shake, the blade will come out of the handle. The Paysan especially is very spine heavy. There's a ton of material on the spine itself, and so the blade is much more easy to get to fall out of the knife. On the custom Paysan, it was the same. The same is really honestly present on my custom Nirvana 2.0. I could shake it and it's not going to come out, but if I give it a solid throw, it'll come out. On the Nirvana 3.0, if I do the same thing, it will come out. But that is a much stronger throw than the Paysan, but the softer detent is there, and that is typical of Peter's knives. But it's not a dangerous thing. I think that sometimes this gets overplayed and overhyped in the internet subforums and things like that. But in a true carry and use sense, when you're holding the knife in this position, there's no way that you're going to generate enough rotational force to get that blade to open. It just doesn't happen, even on the Paysan. And so I think people need to consider the physics of knife carrying before they get angry about a lighter detent, because what it does provide is an excellent and easily reproducible action on a knife that is not a flipper. Flipper knives generally need to have stronger detents to allow for an aggressive flip, but non-flippers typically don't need overly aggressive detents because you get a different kind of leverage on the blade. Another important part about this pivot is certainly this beautifully done copper pivot collar. On my previous knife, you may have noticed there was a zirconium pivot collar. This time I wanted to set it off a little bit and go with copper. A few of my other knives right now are going to have some copper accents, and it will be great to pair them alongside. For example, I have this Mokume pivot collar on the Shamwari right here. I have some other knives that have some really great pivot collars going on as well. I also acquired this Frank Fisher Fury, at the Blade Show as well with a sweet pivot collar. So it was fun to me to get one with a little bit more pop than the zirconium. I think the zirconium provides a very nice tuxedo look, but I really like the color that the copper brings. When I was carrying it at Blade Show, it developed a very dark brown patina from all the sweat in my pocket. So I came home and polished it up and reset the patina, and it's got this beautiful orange hue to it now. It looks like beautiful copper, and I am in love with it. I think it looks so nice, and in the spectrum of the rest of my collection, it's going to look incredible. I have some other pieces that are getting modified or changed or fixed a little bit right now, and when they're all together, it's going to make for some awesome content. So, the action is excellent. The lockup is early and very good. There's no steel lock bar insert, but it's a very secure lockup. I've never had any problem with one of the custom Rassenti knives with either lock stick or too much lock tension or any other problems with lockup, lock failure, or anything like that. Peter knows how to bend a lock. I'll never forget speaking to Gustavo Cicchini of GTC Knives at the Blade Show in 2018. And he said, "Who do you think taught Peter how to bend the integral lock bar?" It was me. And so that was a fun experience to learn about that history with Rassenti and GTC. So speaking of bending the lock bar, let's go ahead and talk about this awesome integral handle right here. I got it in the contoured Coke bottle style. This is reminiscent of the very first custom Nirvana that I ever got, as well as the large Satori that I bought from Peter. This knife makes this the 5th knife that I've bought from him directly. At this point, I only own this Nirvana and the 2.0. These are the ones that I really love. The Nirvanas are the perfect knives, and really and truly, I love them. I like all of Peter's knives, but it's these Nirvanas that really sing to me, and I just love them. This with the Coke bottle frame I showed you brought the weight down to 3.8, 3.9 ounces, and it just provides an ergonomic experience like no other. When you're holding the knife, your fingers rest beautifully along these contours. When you're opening the knife, it provides a perfect resting point for the thumb to provide an excellent Spidey flick. It's just a brilliant, brilliant design, and it makes it just so sleek. Right here, it even hides the pocket clip a little bit more in that it allows the pocket clip to sit a little bit more sleekly against the body. Speaking of the pocket clip, this one is a bit of an upgrade. I kind of had to tell Peter that his pocket clips are not really the best ones in the custom industry. They're rather simple, they're rather thick, they're usually not very flexible, and they're not very tall. There's not a lot of ramp, and there's not a lot of clearance. I so said, hey Peter, man, can you make this clip a little bit better? And so he did just that. Let me get this close up right here so you can see. He has increased the amount of ramp at the front of the clip. He has increased the amount of clearance under the clip. He has reduced the amount of material here ever so slightly. And then he has chamfered the edges here to give it more of a prismatic look. So really and truly, if I hold these two clips up next to each other, the clip is not substantially thinner on the right side than it is on the left with regards to the center of the clip. He's just milled away some more material in areas to allow it to work better. There's a nice amount of spring, but some of the people on Instagram commented that it looked really weak and thin. I just wanted to reassure everyone that it is really not very weak and thin compared to the standard clip. It's quite a lot of titanium that's still there, and titanium is an incredibly strong and durable material. So all in all, what do I think of this knife? I could not be more impressed. This knife is perfection. It is the Nirvana perfected. He has taken all the small issues that he perceived on his own knife and made them even better. And in my hand, it translates into a perfect knife. It's a little bit smaller, so it's easier to carry, but it's still a full-size blade. Classic drop point, now with an even better hollow grind on it. Easier to access Spidey hole, same perfect finishes. Now I have a new knife with the Coke bottle frame again, that beautiful thin milling. Nice and smooth with a perfect action. And probably my favorite thing, which came as a surprise completely, is the sound that this knife makes when it opens. Perhaps you've heard it during the course of this rather long video, but take a listen to this. It makes this beautiful ting that's unlike any other knife that I have ever owned. Perhaps it is a quality of the integral handle. Perhaps it is an acoustic quality of this chamfered handle. Whatever it is, I don't know, but this makes the most beautiful sound I've ever heard a pocket knife make when you open it. Someone on Instagram made fun of me for enjoying that noise, but I think if you follow this channel, you too might appreciate the acoustic properties of some new folding knives. And this one is a beautiful Stradivarius violin with regards to the sound that it makes. So really, really happy with this knife in every respect, from its looks to its function to its build quality to the sound it makes. I couldn't be more happy to have this piece of Peter Rassenti's work in my collection. If you're not following him, I recommend that you check him out at Peter Rassenti on Instagram. You can follow me over there on Instagram as Dr. Frunkey. If you want to help support my channel, you can head to patreon.com/Dr. Frunkey, where you can help me out a little bit with all the costs associated with running the channel. I really appreciate you guys watching this video. Leave some comments down below. Definitely click like and subscribe to my channel here. And I can't wait to show you the next knife on the Dr. Frunkey channel. And as always, guys, take care.